Hello everyone and welcome to Skillcapped. My name is Dr. Zor and today I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to know to play Split effectively like the pros. We'll be looking at strategies that the pros use, the best agents to be playing on Split, and simple positions that can land you easy kills. Before we get into that though, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those bells on because we have a ton more premium content headed your way and you don't want to miss out on your chance to improve. Now before we get started, let's talk about the best agents to play on Split and why they're so good on this map. First up, Viper has been an agent that has been heavily debated upon as several players have differing opinions on her, but she's actually an incredible useful agent on Split. The main reason being that on the attacker side, she has a very powerful toxic screen that can be thrown to block off both ramps and heaven at the same time. One ability and multiple choke points are covered off from the enemies, allowing you to effectively push onto the A site with minimal utility used up. Likewise, maps that allow for one-way smokes work heavily in favor of Viper. On Defender side, there is a one-way smoke in Mail that essentially shuts down a mid to B hit from the attacker side. So Viper's abilities work very well with Split's map setup. While I wouldn't necessarily say she's a must-have, she is incredibly useful here and would be a good pickup. Next, Cypher is an incredibly useful agent on Split. On the attacker side, he can be very useful for placing trap wires to catch flanks, as well as using his camera to find defender locations. More importantly, on the defender side, Cypher is a very strong agent to defend the B site with good camera positions and tricky trap wires that can be placed outside B garage to catch enemies off guard while you shoot them down for easy kills. With Cypher and Viper being said, Sage is another must-have on Split, especially with the new changes to Middle. Middle has now been expanded, making it an area that is more contestable by the attackers. You can use Molotovs and slow orbs to delay an enemy push, but more importantly, Sage's wall is the only ability that can cover the entire mid choke point, which then allows you to be more flexible with your defensive setup. On the attacker side, her walls are also very useful to get a good push going. You'll see this later in the video how her wall can be used to create an effective attack onto the B site. With that being said, the other agents you choose don't differ too much from the other maps. You want to have some variety, so having one duelist to entry frag for the team and one other controller such as Brimstone or Omen will help to stall on defense and push on attack. Viper's abilities allow for some good site takes, but besides her one way at mid-mail, she lacks further abilities to effectively stall a push from the attackers, so you can grab the duelist and controller with Viper, or if you don't have a Viper, you can add an initiator such as Breach that brings in powerful flashes to push and defend, as well as an ultimate that's just wide enough to land on a majority of the sites on Split and allow for good retakes or attacks. Next up, in order to effectively play both attack and defense on Split, we need to learn to play default. Playing default refers to the standard positions that your team should play at the beginning stages of a round. On defender side, this setup ensures that you're in an optimal position to defend whichever site the attackers decide to push, and on the attacker side, it ensures that you're in a good position to grab a pick on the enemy and prevent getting flanked. With that being said, let's go into the default setup on defender side. On the defender side, there are multiple setups you can use on A, but you want to have two players defending the site. The main idea with each setup is to have multiple angles and positions that the attackers will have to check so that they'll have to split their focus and be easier targets to kill as the defender. One default A setup would be having two players at A where one person is on ramps and another player is either on site or rafters. Another setup that's a little bit more defensive is to have one player at rafters and another player at elbow or screens. And lastly, this one is an in-between of the two, but you can place one player on site and another player at rafters. These are some options that you can switch back and forth between to keep the enemies guessing on your positions, and they're also close enough to one another that you can create crossfires with your teammate and continue dispersing the attention of the attackers. In middle, you want to usually have two players hovered in this area. Mid is a very important part of the map to keep control of, as it allows attackers to create split pushes into A through vents or in B through heaven, so you want to keep mid heavily guarded to ensure these splits don't happen. The standard setup is having one player at vents and another at male. This allows for a good crossfire if the enemies were to push through mid. Another setup you can also do is having two players around male and heaven if you found that the attackers are constantly hitting mid to B. Lastly, on B, you are usually well off with just one player on it, as there's only one choke point that the attackers can push from to get into the site, which is garage. You also have a player in male/heaven that can quickly rotate if you were to hear the attackers coming B. So Cypher is especially good solo defending B, as he can delay the push for a very long time using his spy cam for early information and his tripwires to slow a push. On the attacker side, your default setup involves spreading out your team at the beginning of the round to ensure there aren't any openings for the defenders to flank you. As an attacker, having control of mid is crucial to an effective site take, as it opens up the doors for further split pushes which will divide the defender's attention. To start a round off, you want to have one player working through garage, 2 to 3 players working through the barriers for mid, and then 1 to 2 players working through A. This will give you a good chance of overwhelming mid while also positioning your team to grab initial picks onto the B or A site, which will give you a man advantage. If you do have a Cypher, you can trapwire the B or A flanks to ensure the defenders can't push through, and from there you can get more people towards the other site or mid to get control of those choke points easier. Now that we know the default setups, we will now go over how to attack sites, and we're going to start off with the B site. This site is usually the tougher of the two sites, as you really only have one free choke point that you can attack it from, which is garage. Pushing all your players from garage could potentially work in some situations if you use abilities, but if a Cypher is playing on B like we mentioned earlier, his camera can catch the push out early on, and his trapwires and cyber cage will grant him free kills onto you and allow the defenders ample time to rotate. So with the B attack, you usually want to start attacking from multiple angles, which means getting mid control. I'll emphasize this multiple times, but for an effective attacker side, you want to have mid as many rounds as you can. So from here, you can then split push onto B, with some members going through garage and other members going through male. You can see in this clip from T1 that they worked through mid and were able to obtain it. Brax is also working around garage and grabs a quick pick onto one of the B defenders, so now the team knows that the B site is weak. From there, they start to pick up the pace and push 3 members through male to B and 2 players through garage to B. Male and heaven are wider areas, which is why T1 has more players there, and you can see this push divides the attention of the defenders and they easily get overwhelmed. So key point with the B attacks, get mid control and then split push onto the site from there. Now sometimes you may run into situations where you aren't able to get in mid, but if you have some idea of where the enemies are positioned and they don't have a Cypher, then a straight up garage attack can be beneficial with the right use of abilities. To perform this garage push, I would advise placing 2 smokes, one up at heaven and one at spawn to block off the early rotations, and from there a sage wall can be placed onto the right side of garage to further block off defender vision, and you can then push straight forward on one side of the map and overwhelm any players that are there. Next up is attacking the A site. You'll usually find yourself attacking A more often as there are more choke points to push the site from. You can go straight through A short, you can go up A ramp, or get mid control and go through vents to A. Having so many angles and places to push from makes it a lot easier to overwhelm the defenders and successfully push through the site, and you want to make sure that you're pushing from at least 2 of these positions when you're going through A. Also, when pushing this site, some common choke points you're going to want to have smoked off are ramps, heaven, and screens. These are common angles that defenders will play and will force them to back off or make a risky push, which will give you an easier chance of killing them and then taking the site. You can see in this clip from T1 that they actually successfully take mid control and are able to do the 2-way split into the A site. 2 players go through vents to heaven and then 3 players go through A short. 100 Thieves were actually playing very far back from A, so T1 was able to take heaven for free and can then focus on exploding onto the site itself. Hiko actually has his ultimate, so he was able to get 1 kill, but luckily Brax also has his ultimate and was able to trade it off, and the site is then theirs. From here, the rotations actually come really quickly from 100 Thieves, and they actually make this round pretty winnable. The defender Omen uses a really smart smoke to isolate Crashies, and then he grabs off for some quick picks, so this was almost a lost round, but Brax does what Brax does best and clutches it out. The main point with this clip though is showcasing the effective A split that occurred at the beginning of the round that allowed T1 to take the site in the first place. Now that we know how to attack each site on Split, let's talk about advanced strategies that the pros use and that you can implement into your play as well. Getting information is crucial to this game, and if you can identify enemy locations early on, it can give you a huge advantage. One way you can get this information on the defender side is by playing a little aggressive to try to find enemy players. When you do this, make sure that you have a teammate to back you up, and with this information you can either get a quick kill or trade, or you can identify that no one is at a choke point and you can rotate players to the more likely site that's going to be hit. You can see in this clip here by Immortals that Raze ends up pushing through Garage, and now Cypher didn't actually go with her, but he did throw an aggressive spy cam first and used that as a potential distraction for the attackers, which would have then allowed Raze to get a kill. No one was in Garage though, which then led the players to rotate more players over to A. Now with this information and noise that T1 created, Immortals knows that the A hit is going to be more likely, and so they actually use a combination of ultimates to slow them down but to also counter attack T1. Brimstone uses his ultimate to force T1 to back away, and then Phoenix uses his ultimate as well to aggressively push afterwards, and he gets a runaway Cypher and information on the rest of T1's positions. Now from here, T1 could have rotated wherever they wished, but Immortals actually decided to stay on A, and the big reason why is because they saw the abilities available on the top of the screen and noticed that the enemy Sage had her ultimate up. Because of this, it's likely T1 will try to push back to A and try to get a resurrect onto that player, but also the deep aggressive camera that we saw earlier from Cypher can spot out a B push very early on, and Sage is still playing at male and can quickly rotate if necessary to slow the B push with slow orbs and allow the defenders time to rotate. So with this information, the best site to stack is the A site, and sure enough, T1 stays and tries to push A again, only to be met by 4 defenders. So you can see in this clip that the information is key, and if you have that, you'll find that defending and attacking sites will be much easier. Next up is coordinating plays with your teammates that are defending a site with you. This particularly works well on A, as there are 2 choke points that the attackers have to focus on, which are ramps and A short. So what you can do as a defender is have the ramp player identify the attackers first and shoulder peek the attackers to divert their attention onto him. And while that's happening, your A short player can then peek shortly afterwards to surprise the attackers. You can see this happen on this clip by T1, where Food is playing on ramps and AZK is playing on A short. Food starts off the round by peeking down ramp, and he identifies the attackers and starts to jiggle peek and shoulder peek to distract them. The key is he doesn't peek for a very long time, only enough that he may get a good flick onto the attacker, but his main goal is to just act as a distraction. He doesn't fully commit to each peek, and you can see shortly after this occurs that AZK peeks out from short and surprises the attackers for an easy triple kill, and then they peek together at this point to clean up the rest of Immortals. Alright, so what is your favorite position to play on Split? Let us know in the comment section below, and while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind: helping you become a better player. We here at Skillcapped want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and good luck out there.